Good afternoon, everyone. First, I'd like to thank the organizers for giving me the chance to present my research here. Where I am presenting today is the title, as you have seen, Evidence-Based is a development of population model for local control and overall survival for radiotherapy. It has been a very long and elaborate project, and it extended for more than 5 years, and it has produced 2 PhDs. That's for me and for my colleague from Canada, radiation oncologist Dr. Tim Hanna, and also the supervisor's contribution, Professor Jeff Delaney and Professor Michael Barton. First, I'd like to give a bit of background why we embarked on this research. Radiotherapy utilization, as it is defined as the use of radiotherapy in the people who need it. That's the simplest one. So the proportion of cancer patients who need radiotherapy of cancer population. So as you know, that cancer incidence is increasing, and so the demand for radiotherapy is also increasing, as in Australia as well as over the world. So as you can see in this world map, the radiotherapy utilization is very variable. It started from in the red areas. You can see the red areas is the low income areas where it is 25%, whereas in the high income areas like US, it is more than 100%. So what does Australia stand here? It stands in the higher group, obviously, but still it's not the fully green area. So we are still deficit to some extent. So all this variability thought that our group was thinking that we need a benchmark to say that whether we are doing good or better or worse. So that's led to the development of this project. And partly it was radiotherapy utilization project that was mentioned also by Gabriel. I'll also touch a little bit of it. So population-based models, what is the benchmark? What does it mean? It means that population of the, as you mentioned, that all people suffering from a condition, and the demand models are the optimal estimations of this for a service. It is flexible, it can be developed for many outcomes, and we concentrated on radiotherapy. So radiotherapy utilization model, at first it was developed in 2003, and with Professor Delaney was the main initiator for this project. That's developed. What is that? That's the benchmark model, which has been really popular in the radiotherapy world and has been used in Europe and Canada and other parts also as well. So this radiotherapy utilization means that if radiotherapy is received according to the evidence mentioned in the guidelines, what will be the optimal proportion that should receive radiotherapy. So it was first developed, and then even again it has been redeveloped or reviewed for the newer indications. The latest proportion is 48%. According to this model, 48% of cancer population should receive radiotherapy in their first treatment at least once. So these radiotherapy utilization models are the basis of our research. We extended it and reviewed it, and to include the benefit of specific benefit, because these are the person who receive, but how much is the quantifiable benefit of this radiotherapy that we developed. So this is the flow chart that you showed at the beginning. We have to identify the indications mentioned in the clinical guidelines, and then from there, we explored the epidemiological data, mainly population data, to find out what's the proportion that have that indications. And then we, for each indication, these are the clinical scenarios. I'll explain a bit more later. Clinical scenarios where radiotherapy is offered by the clinicians. So, and then for this, each indication, we used the published data from all we actually reviewed more than 6,000 published articles to find out the benefits for the models and applied it to the model to find out that actually what is the proportional benefit. And this summed up ultimately all the indication benefits to produce a overall population benefit. So this population benefit, since we use the public hospital data, not hospital, published report data, there may be publication bias and there was data quality issues. So to that, we have used the sensitivity analysis. The software we used was Triage, and that has the unique advantage of producing the sensitivity analysis to check the robustness of the model. So evidence, as we mentioned, all the electronic databases were used to get the evidence, and we used the NHMRC hierarchy level. So first, there are two models for each side. One is for radiotherapy only, compared to no radiotherapy. And the second model we developed was that concurrent radiotherapy given concurrently with chemotherapy. There are some indications those need it, and what is that extra benefit over the radiotherapy only benefit. So as you can see here in these graphs, this is for a very well evidenced data for the breast cancer, showing that use of radiotherapy produce survival advantage of about, not that great, but it produce obviously local control benefit more, but overall survival also improves with use of radiotherapy. So we developed 26 models. These are the commonest cancers, which are more than 1% incidence in Australian population, and these are commonly offered radiotherapy. That's brain and breast and head and neck, gastrointestinal, melanoma, hematological, and some other cancers. So each, as I mentioned, each model had two components, one for local control, another for overall survival, and up to 5 years. That was the standard. So this is the sample of one of the models. We usually call it a tree. And you can see that each branch here represents a clinical scenario, stage-based clinical scenario, that whether radiotherapy is needed or not. Some of them are palliative, but for benefit, we only consider the curative radiotherapy indications. The beauty of this model is that it is so flexible. Suppose I'm just giving this lung cancer model. When I first developed for stage 1 cancers, we just offered that they need radiotherapy, medically inoperable, all. But later on, when the SABR, as our previous speaker Andrew spoke, the SABR came into effect, and their benefit, some of them were much more than the conventional ones. So we were able to include that branch also in our model at the later stage, and found that the benefit was much more than the conventional benefit. So what's all this means? After all these results, we saw that the topmost cancers in Australia, the highest benefit was local control benefit, was for prostate cancer, and for rectal cancer was the overall survival benefit, that was about 6%. For breast, as you can see, the incidence is quite high in Australia. It has estimated to have a local control benefit of 15%, but unfortunately, it didn't translate into that much of overall survival. It's only very modest, 2% benefit. So this is the individual cancer sites showing that cervix and cervical cancer has the highest benefit estimate for local control, and some of them also didn't have any benefit, 6 cancers. And also, so as is the, also that overall survival benefit also was highest for cervical cancer, and some cancers like gastrointestinal cancers had only palliative benefits. We didn't calculate that, so it didn't have any survival or local control benefit. For melanoma, it was a Australian context is a very important cancer. It has local control benefit, but no evidence of overall survival benefit. So, as I mentioned before, there was data quality or the indication of radiotherapy also changes in guidelines. To take into account of all these uncertainties, we did do some univariate, that is one variable at one time, and also did multivariate analysis sensitivity. This is showing a tornado diagram of all the uncertainties, and you can see in the topmost is even the HPV positive cervical cancer had the greatest effect, although the model is so robust that the uncertainty didn't only produced 1% variation. So population, what is all means that in general, radiotherapy alone produces 5-year local control of in 10.8%, and the 95 considered interval, as I mentioned, has been done using the multivariate confidence probabilistic deterministic analysis of sensitivity. And this concurrent chemotherapy just produced another 0.5% of benefit, both for local control and survival. So what does it mean, all means in the context of general terms? In Australia, there is, in 2013, there was more than 120,000 new cases of cancer, and if all of them received radiotherapy according to the guidelines, the maximum benefit could be applied for about 1,400 patients for local control and 3,500 patients for 5-year overall survival. If we only consider, this include the all cancer population with what is called curative and palliative indications. But if we only consider curative radiotherapy population, these benefits would be doubled. So, and where to go from here? We are working on that for further extension of it to produce some economic model. Costing is a big part. We have to convince that the benefit of that can be achievable with minimum cost. So we are including in the economic benefit model as well, and doing further work on that. And that will also have effect on how much underutilization is causing the aversion of benefit. So these are the publications. We have some major publications, and if anybody is interested, can be supplied. And thank you very much for your attention.